Looks good. So I'm just about to do a cuttlebone casting, and I just wanted to talk to you about a couple things here. So in this setup, I set up a little bit different than normal. Normally I use cross-locking tweezers set up for cuttlebone in a third arm, and I use rubber bands and I just go over top of it like this, and that holds it. Should the rubber band snap, it holds it together, plus the cross-locking tweezers already compress it. However, in this case, because this is a bit larger and I wanted to show an alternative to using cross-locking tweezers, this is just a little bucket with rice in it, and the reason for rice is it's cheap, and should anything fall into it, it'll easily be recaptured, and you can just boil the rice out without having to worry about it. The other thing you can do with this is you can set it down. In my book, I talk about binding wire and using binding wire. Under here are the elastics. In this case, because I'm not using my cross-locking tweezers and I didn't want to use my binding wire, I've just wrapped about 4 layers of masking tape over top of the elastics, and that will stop them from popping. One thing I didn't mention, and I mentioned to my students, but I forgot to mention at other times, is I always pour my cuttlebone from this side as opposed to this side, because I can get it closer, I can get my ingot or my crucible closer. So today I'll be using my electromelt, which is just about there, as opposed to using a torch, which is you know, another option for everybody to use if you've got one. I use an electromelt most of the time. The only problem I find that I sometimes have, okay, so we're good to go there, is sometimes my electromelt, if I've got a lot of material, you can see how it's a little bit cooler at the top, and it cools quicker with these as it gets there, so sometimes it doesn't stay fluid. So I will use a torch to facilitate the pour when I'm doing using my electromelt, and I'm only doing one today because I only have one to do. The other thing is, when you're setting up your cuttlebone, make sure it's perfectly vertical and stable so that it doesn't move. I'm just going to turn my electromelt off first, and then you can get nice and close. Pour. And in this case, I'm just going to dump my extra silver onto the bottom of another crucible, maybe, or something. This is client silver, so I gotta deal with it appropriately. But I have nowhere to put it, and I don't have a bucket. Oh, so frustrating. I'm gonna put it back in there for now to keep it warm, and then I'll just get some water ready for that cuttlebone. See how it goes. When you're taking your cuttlebone out of the mold, you can see how it's smoking just slightly. I like to use pliers or tweezers or something like that. Never grab the bone sideways like this. Always grab it on this edge. That's the furthest area away from the heat. So in this case, I'm just going to rip through the tape here, again at this very edge, so I can get at my rubber band. There we go, one down. And then, now this cuttlebone had a crack in it. Right along here, you can see it burning through. The piece that I'm casting, and one of the reasons I wanted to show this today was because I'm not using cuttlebone for the texture this time, which I normally use. And I'm using it to cast something as smooth as I could get it. Wow, that's quite the crack. So I have to be very careful when I take this off, because that could do exactly that. So I'm just going to set these two pieces down. I'll let my silver air cool just a little bit more. And then go the rest of the way here. Still a little bit warm. So I had, this was the commission. I had to make a copy of this little chakra, which is a religious piece. And the little bit, I've got a little bit of texture on here. Lots on the back, which I'm gonna just file off. Little bit on the front, I'll be filing off all the texture on this. So similar to what people would do in sand casting, I'm really just using this as a mold, and I needed two of them, so I set two of them in the same Cuttlebone, and I'm just gonna cut it right across there with my saw frame. And then I could have carved a wax, I could have molded this with RTV or anything like that, but I'm only making two of these ever. So there was really no point in doing anything other than cutting it. So to get this as smooth as possible, I just skipped over the brushing phase. And like I said, there's still a little bit in there, but it will probably take me about 10 minutes to file that up. And I'll be filing that pretty aggressively. Now, this was quite thick. She did not want it as thick as this. She just wanted a copy of the stone piece that she had. So that'll finish up just lovely. A little bit of filing, all good. So you don't have to keep the texture. It is one of the reasons. The other reason for doing cuttlefish is to get that, to get easy, fast models, right? So the reason I use this side with the crack in it for this was because I knew that the crack on here, I was going to file it off, so it didn't really matter. Like the crack will show. You can see it right here. It's a line going up the middle of this. It doesn't matter because I'm going to file it off, and if I had used that piece of Cuttlebone for anything else, it would have affected my texture. This side here, what I will do with this, because I'm very frugal with my Cuttlebone, you can see how thick it is. This was the back, so it shouldn't really be burnt too deeply. So what I will do, and I'm just going to do it right now just to show you, is I'm going to sand it down further, and I'm going to use my big sander for this. I just need a little bit more room on my student bench here. Let's see if I can get this into camera a bit. So this is a specially designed Cuttlebone sanding tray that I made. I usually only use this at the college that I teach at, or when I'm doing very large workshops. They don't travel very well, but so I'm just going to sand this down. And if I can get enough of this, I might be able to reuse this bone. Now I'm getting to the hard edge here. Kind of don't want any of that on my carving area. So this is really just to see if I can resalvage the back of this bone. I won't get as big of a casting area out of it, but we'll see. It looks pretty deep. I might not be able to do it. Oh, definitely won't be able to do it because I just broke it. So, and it did burn. It did burn a little bit too deep, so I wouldn't have been left anything else. But there are times when I will, you know, if I'm doing something small, I'll cut that across there, assuming I had actually cut it. And sometimes I will reuse a piece like this, knowing that that will be my button. So if I'm doing a small piece, I will salvage a piece like this and, you know, put a new button in it. Normally I use a button former for this, but, and so long as my piece isn't huge, you know, I could get a about a piece the size of a dime in there. And, you know, I could recast that if I wanted to. I could probably use a piece of the back like that. I don't always do that, but, you know, there's no reason to be wasteful with this. Anyways, I just thought I'd show everybody that. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or email me or PM me. I am working on a few other things. Some other cuttlefish projects and experiments, but we will see how that all goes later. Thanks for watching, guys, and have an enjoyable weekend.